So all this is about Japan taking a historic step away from its post-war pacifism on Tuesday by ending a ban that has kept the military from fighting abroad since 1945, which is a victory for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, but a move that has riled South Korea and China and is worrying many Japanese voters.
The change, the most dramatic shift in policy since Japan set up its post-war armed forces 60 years ago, will widen Japan's military options by ending the ban on exercising collective self-defense or aiding a friendly country under attack.
So let's take an in-depth look. Dr. Shin Chang-hoon joins us live in the studio. Dr. Shin is a senior researcher and director of the Center for Global Governance at the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Dr. Shin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we have a rough understanding of this reinterpretation of Japan's pacifist constitution that now allows Tokyo to basically go to war. So I think the biggest question in the minds of especially many Koreans is, does that mean Japan's armed forces can now enter the Korean peninsula if it believes its ally, possibly the U.S. here, is under attack?
In accordance with general international law and the jurisprudence of the International Court of Justice, it is not right. For instance, the International Court of Justice, in the case concerning military and paramilitary activities in and against Nicaragua, clearly held that in order to exercise the collective self-defense, there must be armed attack of a certain state, and there must be a clear, express invitation by the state, by the victim state of the armed state. So if there is an armed attack against U.S. military bases or the South Korea, then South Korean government has to, give express, invitation to Japanese military
or request
armies.
for military aid, right?
Right, yes, right.
So they're like vampires. They cannot come in unless they're invited.
No.
Basically. Well, Abe's cabinet adopted a resolution outlining the shift, which also, I believe, relaxes limits on activities in UN-led peacekeeping operations, and we believe a gray zone incidents, which is short of a full-scale war. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, right. Well, actually, these two examples are not collective self-defense situation. For instance, UN peacekeeping operation is based upon the United Nations Charter, which regulates United Security Council resolutions, United Nations Charter, Chapter 7. And in case of the gray zone, the activities does not, as you mentioned, amount to the full-scale war. For instance, the advisor group of the Prime Minister Abe Shinzo released the report. In accordance with the report, there are two scenarios for the, gray zone. One is the situation in the remote islands, the militia entered the remote islands of Japan, then this is not full-fledged war situation. And another example is a certain security instability in the U.S. military bases in Japan.
Right. However, despite all this, it sure doesn't look like the Abe government has the full backing of the Japanese public. In fact, I have some figures here. According to a survey by one of Japan's leading newspapers, Nihon Keizai Shimbun, on June 30th, 54% of the Japanese public were against this move, the reinterpretation of the pacifist constitution, while only 29% were supportive. So then why is Prime Minister Shinzo Abe pushing ahead with such an agenda?
It is something related to the, political commitment in his election campaign. He wants to, he restore the current status of Japan as a normal state, under the name of the, positive pacifism. So in order to keep this kind of political commitment in his campaign, he wants to push forward the collective self-defense. But the problem is that, the thing is that he chose the track of a certain, awkward, tracks, for instance, by way of the reinterpretation of pacifist constitution. This means the exclusion of the general publics, because normally in the revision procedures there must be referendum. So in that case, the majority of the Japanese public opposes this kind of reinterpretation of constitution.
Well, now Japan has a big foot in the door, and the sky's the limit, according to some experts. Well, Tokyo's latest shift in their military paradigm, I guess it will affect their relations diplomatically, politically, in any way possible with Northeast Asian region and, of course, with the U.S. How should the South Korean government respond to the changes right now?
First of all, I think there are a certain these differences of opinions in the priority of the diplomacy in the Northeast Asia. Japan, in order to be the normal states, Japan put the priority on the exercise of the collective self-defense. But South Korea puts emphasis on the historical reconciliations. Japan has to consider which way would be the most proper way to be the normal states, because, Japan already has colonized South Korea. So Japan needs a certain sincere regrets, in terms of the historical reconciliations. So this kind of differences of the priority, it causes a lot of, conflicts in the Northeast Asia.
Basically, resolve all the unresolved from World War II. Basically, only then and then would Japan be able to become a normal state that it pursues it to be. All right, Dr. Shin Chang-hoon, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening.
Thank you very much.